Wanted to further continue our conversation by knowing how we ask non-verbally, because I have a feeling a lot of us ask for things and we don't even realize we're asking.
Well, the important thing to realize is that it is not through your words that you ever ask.
Could you expound on that? How are other ways that we ask? Yesterday, I was driving to the conference. I was going to stop, have dinner with someone in Austin, was really having a good time, was doing a little bit of triple-digit driving, enjoying the road, enjoying my car, and just having a really good time, feeling great, and all of a sudden there's noise under my hood and I've thrown up a serpentine fan belt. Did part of my being ask to slow down? Did somebody on the road think he needs to slow down? Was it just an old belt that wore out? What happened?
Well, the timing of those belts is often very compliant with what is most important for you. In other words, do you find yourself frequently having an experience that you would call a breakdown only to feel appreciation about where it happened or the timing of it? And so
yes, it was perfect.
Things of a physical nature do wear. And of course, it's nice if you receive the prompt that lets you be aware of it in advance. Mm-hmm. When you think about asking, and when you consider that it is happening through words, then you have to say, well, then that would mean anyone who is nonverbal, like all of the beasts, must not be able to ask. And then you might say, well, just because they don't speak our language doesn't mean they're not asking. In other words, you could ask, you might say, in the language of English or the language of German or the language of Russian or the language of Pekingese or Siamese in your beasts.
Yes.
And then you say, well, maybe it isn't through our words at all. And we say it is in the language of vibration.
Okay.
Now, sometimes the language of your words matches the language of your vibration, and when that happens, it's a nice thing. In other words, we like to see it when you are asking for something with your words and you are in the same time in vibrational harmony with what you're asking for, because we know that the manifestation is shortly on the heels of all of that. But what happens with most people, and it is the reason for your question, is that people are commonly asking for something from a place of not having it. So their dominant vibration is about shortage rather than about fulfillment. Their words are saying what they want, but their vibration is not about what they want, it's about where they are. We will see our physical friends, they'll stand here and they'll say, I'm not happy where I am. And even if they're not saying the words, that's the vibration that they're offering. And then they will say, I would rather be over there. And we'll say, well, tell us about what's over there. And they'll say, well, it's a lot better than over here. So now we're talking about over here some more. And then we say, well, what would it be like if you were over there? And then they say, well, first let me explain to you how awful it has been over here and why I really want to go over there. And we say, all the time you spend justifying why you'd rather be somewhere else or explaining where you are vibrating about here. And so even though you think you're asking to go over there, you're really vibrating about over here. Mm-hmm. And so asking, all of it's happening vibrationally. Okay. In every moment, the asking is so much more detailed, so much more subtle, so much more information than any of you have any idea that you're giving. You are constantly exuding preference. Because from your personal perspective, you are perceiving preference, which means even if you were not speaking it, your consciousness is formulating the preference within you, and that preference is noted by all that is. That's why you don't have to speak it, you just have to prefer it, to notice it, to conclude it. Words are an absolute non-issue. What is an issue is how quickly you can then become a vibrational match to your own desire. So if you're hoping for something, you're not quite a match. If you're yearning, I really want this thing that I do not have, you're not a match. If you're optimistic, you're a match. If you're looking forward to it, you're a match. If you're happy where you are while you're on your way to something that you will like even better, you're a match. If you're in the attitude of, wouldn't it be nice, you're a match. If you're in the attitude of, all in good time, you're a match. If you're in the attitude of, things are unfolding nicely for me, you're a match. I never get it done. You're a match. But when you say, this should have been done, you're not a match. Or what's taking so long? You're not a match. Or why isn't it happening for me? You're not a match. When you feel jealousy because someone else is getting something that you want, you're not a match. When you feel good, you're a match. When you feel less than good, you're less than a match.
Okay.
Yes.
Wonderful. Back to the belt.
If
you're ready.
We are indeed. We've talked about this manager called law of attraction. And sometimes physical beings prefer that there is an individual consciousness, often you label it God, who is looking out for and orchestrating everything. And we would have to say to you that this source energy, which includes this law of attraction, as you think in terms of it being this manager that is responding to the vibration, then you can understand how all things are happening. In other words, it's not an arbitrary, based upon some set of beliefs that you may not be following. It is this always consistent law that you can tell how it is working, and you can feel your relationship with it by paying attention to the way you feel. So, begin by saying, law of attraction, or the manager, or universal forces, or even call it God if you prefer, is aware of my desires and orchestrating circumstances and events for my benefit. Always opening doors toward the fulfillment of that which I'm reaching for. So you're flying down the freeway at over 100 miles an hour, and you are pure in your vibration. In other words, it's a vibration of only exhilaration, or it's a vibration of I'm getting away with something that I shouldn't be getting away with, or it's a vibration of I have a magnificent machine that I adore, or it's a vibration of I have a magnificent machine that I have adored that has been wonderful at its prime that I'm wanting to replace. Or, in other words, there are many combinations of vibrations that are within you, and we can tell you which ones are active by what manifests.
Okay.
So you say, well, was it just a weak belt? And we say, never only that.
Okay.
In other words, even the inspiration to drive at triple digits. In other words, do you feel any relationship with the speed at which you were driving and the breaking of the belt?
Looking back on it, probably so.
And were you pleased with the timing of the breaking of the belt?
It was an inconvenience, but it was close to the dealership
where it
had originally been purchased.
That's what we're getting at.
They had the part in stock.
So when you look back on it, you would say, couldn't have happened at a better time or place.
It was the best place in the world for it to happen.
So do you think that the inspiration to speed up, to accelerate the wearing of the belt, could have had something to do with a broader preference that had been set into motion on lots of occasions before? Like, I like things to be efficient, I always like to be running, I like to be safe,
Yes.
I like to enjoy my... In other words, can you see how whole combinations of things that were important to you were inspired to conclude it was a sort of culmination that occurred as a result of a bunch of vibrations that you held? And we would say everything was pretty good within that, wouldn't you?
It was perfect.
So let's say that your belt breaks and it's inconvenient and you walk 5 miles and you don't like the experience of it. And then out of that experience, even if you don't say a word to anyone about it, is a preference that rises from you. And the preference would go sort of like, I'm wanting to stay up on top of the maintenance of my vehicle. I'm wanting to be inspired about the replacement of anything so that I do not get stranded. That's how those things come about. Back row. Yes.
I like using the Placemat method of organizing my day, and ideas come really fast. I'm writing them down constantly, and usually it takes about a week to do the things that are on one day's placemat, and that's okay with me. But what I notice is that some things just never.
You mean the universe takes a week, or you do?
I do. Things come really quickly, though. And what I notice is that...
Are you writing it on the universe's side every day?
Yeah.
Well, you only have to tell the universe once.
Okay.
Because you see, do you understand the placemat process that she's talking about? Let's talk about it here, and then we'll tell you exactly what's happening. It's called the placemat process because Jerry and Esther were in a restaurant with a placemat the day that we gave it to Esther for the first time. And so we said, write on this placemat, this process. Esther had a long list of things to do, a list that she could not possibly do today, even though the printing on the top of the list said things to do today. 10 people couldn't have done that list in 10 days. And so, as we watched Esther with her list, every day working on her list, feeling frustration about what was not accomplished, we said to her, draw a line down the center of the page. And on the left side, write, things I will do today. Meaning, things that I must do today, that I will do today. Things that I'm really absolutely going to do today. Things that I'm going to do today. Things that I have no choice other than to do today. I'm going to do it today. I'm not just writing it here so that I'll remember to do it next week or a month from now. I'm going to do this today. Write what is possible to do today. Pick the things that matter most that you're going to do today and write them down. Esther chose 4 things. And then we said to her, on the other side of the list, write things that I would like the universe to do today. And then we said to Esther, go down your list and everything else that's on that list that you didn't take for yourself, put on the universe's side of the placemat. So one by one, she delegated to the universe. And as she made the shift from her column to the universe's column, because we said to her, there's a huge staff to accommodate you, she felt lighter and lighter and lighter. She began to feel relief. Esther had this list of things that she wanted to do. In other words, things that she intended to do, things that she wanted to be done. But she knew that she could not do them. She was overwhelmed by the process of them. So even though she was asking to achieve them, she was not in a place of allowing it to happen easily. She was not in a place of allowing it at all. And by moving the things to the universe's side of the placemat and feeling lighter in the process of it, a tremendous amount of relief took place within her. That's the power of the game. And she achieved her 4 things that day. She had a clearer mind. She was more directed. She had a better time doing it. And several things on the universe's side of the placemat happened too, with no more attention or effort on Esther's part. People called. Somebody else took care of it. She got all kinds of information from various sources that allowed her to check things off that side of the list. Just be easy about it. All of these processes are games. In fact, every process that we've offered is with the intent of helping you to get more into the place of allowing what the universe already knows you want. Sometimes people think that deliberate creation is about deciding what you want and talking about what you want and focusing only about what you want and staying doggedly, almost single-mindedly focused upon it until you get it done. And what we've noticed is that things come very hard and slow under those conditions. The way things come to you is by relaxing and releasing and allowing them to come. You are the guider of what you want to happen. You're not the maker it happen of what you're wanting to happen. There are all kinds of others that will assist you in the process of that, you see. And so we would like you to begin thinking in terms of delegating so much of it. But it's hard for physical humans to get into this delegating mode. Oh, hear this, you're really going to like it. It's going to hit the hot button for so many of you. Most people have a hard time delegating or even wanting to delegate because you have been justifying your existence through your hard work. And you equate success with struggle. You equate results with struggle. And so you sort of wear your struggle like a badge of honor. And all of that is opposite of allowing the well-being. We want you to get into this place of feeling deservability, you see. We want you to begin to notice how much goes well for you, what an extraordinary planet has been nurtured for your benefit, how magnificent this space is that you are within, you see. And as you virtual reality a little here and there to goose up your sense of worthiness and deservability. Doesn't matter how many things that you put on your list. No one's keeping any kind of score like that. The only thing that ever matters in success or achievement is you're achieving the things that you want to achieve.